Hey, wrestling fans. Welcome to the return episode of 360 TBT, the Throwback Thursday show that I came up with quite a while ago. And I've done it a few times, and then, of course, I stopped doing any podcasts altogether. And then recently, I brought 360 Wrestling Fanatic back, and so I decided to bring back Throwback Thursday as well. And I am doing this right now, the audio podcast recording on Anchor, Google Play, Spotify, and other sites where you can get podcasts from. And also doing it as a live stream on YouTube right now. This is the first for this Throwback Thursday show. Also, if anybody has a suggestion for a better name for this show, email at 360wrestlingpodcast@gmail.com. Maybe we can come up with an even better name for the show as I go back and look back through wrestling history. And on today's episode, going to be talking about the first 5 TNA Slammiversary pay-per-views. I decided on this one since this Sunday is Impact Wrestling Slammiversary 2020 pay-per-view, which is very different than any other Slammiversary, with the obviously with the whole COVID-19 thing going on. All of wrestling has been different than it was the last year or so. But I'm going to talk about the first 5 pay-per-views. But before I get to the episode, anybody that's listening on any of the other sites or watching the stream on YouTube, on Anchor, you don't have to, but there is an option to support the podcast. You can make a donation, make the podcast better. You don't have to though, but if you can, it would be great. I put a link in the description to the 360 Wrestling Podcast site on Anchor. But let's get into it. Today's episode, TNA Slammiversary, the first 5, and we're the first ever TNA Slammiversary was held on June 19th, 2005 from the Impact Zone in Orlando, Florida, which was in Universal Studios, which I'm sure everybody is aware of. It was the 3rd anniversary of TNA. And I remember at this time, for the last year, Impact has been on Fox Sports Net, the first home of Impact, the first cable network that they were on. Started off at Fridays at 3 p.m., I think, and then, of course, that deal was up. And then it was announced that the fall 2005, TNA would be moving Impact over to Spike TV, since at the time WWE left to go back to USA. But for this time during the summer before the Spike TV debut, TNA was actually doing Impact exclusively on their website, and they might have put it on YouTube, I think. Was YouTube around yet in 2005? It might have been, but the main home for Impact was TNAWrestling.com at the time. And I remember being pretty excited for this pay-per-view. Was really a big TNA fan at the time. And they had guys like AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Abyss, of course, Sanjay Dutt, America's Most Wanted, Christopher Daniels, Chris Sabin, the alpha male Monty Brown, Michigan's own, And you had veterans like Raven, Sean Waltman, Jeff Jarrett in the promotion. And let's get into the pay-per-view Slammiversary 2005. We start off with some X Division action, which was one of the things from the beginning that made TNA special, that made TNA different, that separated it from any other wrestling promotion in the world at the time, was the X Division. And we have a six-way match here, and it is Shark Boy defeating Amazing Red, Delirious, Primetime Elite Skipper, Jarrell Clark, and Michigan's own Zach Gowen. 6 minutes, 25 seconds. In my opinion, good way, a lot of high-paced, exciting action here to start off the show, to get it going. Really get it started off good here with some solid action. And then we see Shocker, who made his TNA debut just a couple months before this pay-per-view, I think, straight from Mexico, and he defeated Alex Shelley 10 minutes, 13 seconds. And then we see Ron the Truth Killings, obviously now R-Truth in WWE, defeat the Outlaw, also known as Billy Gunn, also known as Kip James. That one goes 7 minutes, 30 seconds. 8-man tag team action. The Naturals, Andy Douglas and Chase Stevens. Or not 8-man tag. I don't know where I got that from, sorry. But tag team action. The Naturals defeated Team Canada to retain the NWA World Tag Team titles. Of course, Team Canada at this tag team match was Eric Young and Petey Williams, with Coach Scott D'Amore and A1 in their corner. I always thought the Naturals were actually kind of an underrated tag team, and they were great. They had a great feud with America's Most Wanted in TNA. They had the first ever Six Sides of Steel, the first ever six-side steel cage match in TNA history, and they were just both very great workers, great tag team. And of course, Team Canada, you got Eric Young and Petey Williams, two great wrestlers there. And Eric Young, his no compete clause is up as of right now. And who knows, he could be one of the surprises in 2020 that we could be seeing this Sunday at Impact Wrestling Slammiversary. You never know. And of course, Coach D'Amore, he was great as a heel at this time, in my opinion. You love to hate him. He always the constant interference in any of Team Canada's matches, whether it was somebody in a singles match or a tag team match, six-man tag. He was always getting involved. He had the hockey stick draped in the Canadian flag. And next up, we have the TNA Wrestling debut of the Samoan submission machine, Samoa Joe, as he defeats Sanjay Dutt via submission with the Coquina Clutch at 6 minutes, 22 seconds. I remember this time there was a lot of hype about Samoa Joe in Ring of Honor. Heard a lot about him, watched him in Ring of Honor, and he had I think it was an 18-month reign as Ring of Honor World Champion. Like I said, there was a whole lot of buzz about him. This was his TNA debut. defeating Sanjay Dutt. And of course, he would go on to have a great career in in TNA, and now in WWE. Of course, now a part of the Raw commentary team. I mean, would like to see him back in the ring doing what he does best, but honestly, he is also great on commentary too, in my opinion. So I'm not going to complain about that too much. And now Bobby Roode, with Coach Scott D'Amore in his corner, defeated Lance Hoyt, now known as Lance Archer in All Elite Wrestling. 7 minutes, 24 seconds. And more tag team action is up next. America's Most Wanted, one of the original tag teams in TNA Wrestling, Chris Harris and James Storm, they defeat the Three Live Crew, BG James and Conan, with Ron the Truth Killings in their corner. And this one, like I said, AMW, one of the original tag teams in TNA, one of the best tag teams there's ever been in TNA Wrestling / Impact Wrestling, and Three Live Crew. Yeah, Conan, BG James, and Ron the Truth Killings. This was very entertaining trio, in my opinion. Yeah, Conan, big fan of his back in WCW. And of course, BG James, the Road Dogg. Everybody was a fan of when he was a part of DX and the New Age Outlaws. And R-Truth, or Ron Killings, I should say, wasn't quite as known as BG James and Conan, but he had the run as K-Quick in WWE, and then when he started in TNA back in the NWA TNA days, he was K-Crush, and then he would go on to become NWA World Champion. Now definitely having a very successful career in WWE as on and off the 24/7 champion. X Division Championship time here, Slammiversary 2005. We have the champion at the time, the Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels, taking on Chris Sabin with Trinity in his corner, and Michael Shane with Tracy Brooks in his corner. Elimination match, to be exact. And Daniels retains. Another good X Division match with a lot of solid action. Three great athletes here. Very good one. And the main event of the evening was for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship in the King of the Mountain. And it is the champion AJ Styles who defeated Jeff Jarrett the month before at Hard Justice 2005 with Tito Ortiz as the special referee. The Monster Abyss, the Alpha Male Monty Brown, and Sean Waltman and Raven. And this is the second King of the Mountain match in TNA history. The first one was a year before at the second anniversary, back when they were still doing the Wednesday night pay-per-views at the Asylum in Nashville. The first one was won by Jeff Jarrett. That's how he got the nickname King of the Mountain. And this year's King of the Mountain is won by Raven to fulfill his destiny and become NWA World Heavyweight Champion for the first time ever. And that is the very first TNA Slammiversary pay-per-view. Now let's go on to the second one, Slammiversary 2006, which was held June 18th, 2006, also from the Impact Zone in Orlando, Florida. And if you haven't seen it before, there was actually a commercial kind of golfing like where it shows somebody supposed to be like Tiger Woods. Mike Tenay and Don West are doing commentary, and then Jeff Jarrett comes up him with his guitar. If you haven't seen that, I think it might be on YouTube. Check that out. Maybe you do Slammiversary 2006 golf commercial. Should bring it up if it is on YouTube. And all right, let's get into the action. First off, we have the first ever and only, I believe, Bingo Hall Brawl with Team 3D, Brother Ray and Brother Devon defeating the James Gang, BG James and Kip James. Now, at 10 minutes, 19 seconds, good brawl, a lot of weapons in this one, brawling outside the ring, of course. And this had to do with, I remember at the time, the James Gang was making fun of ECW, stuff like that. And I think just a little bit before this pay-per-view, a little while before, um, TNA actually ran a house show at which was the former ECW arena. And so the Bingo Hall Brawl in this one, since the ECW arena was a bingo hall at the time, now is the 2300 arena. And next up on Slammiversary 2006, Rhino defeats Bobby Roode and Coach Scott D'Amore in a 2-on-1 handicap match at 11 minutes. And of course, this one was caused by all the interference from Coach D'Amore getting involved in Bobby Roode's matches. And then finally, Rhino had enough and he just wanted to take on both of them. And he did, and he defeated both of them. Hit Coach D'Amore with the gore. And the X Division Championship is on the line next in an elimination match. And it is the champion, Senshi, also known as Loki, defeating Sanjay Dutt, Alex Shelley, Shark Boy, Petey Williams, and Jay Lethal. 19 minutes, 29 seconds. And the eliminations are Shark Boy pinned by Sanjay Dutt after a running shooting star press. Alex Shelley is pinned by Jay Lethal. Jay Lethal is pinned by Petey Williams with the Canadian Destroyer. Petey Williams is pinned by Senshi with the Warrior's Way, and Sanjay Dutt is pinned by Senshi with the Warrior's Way. Loki or Senshi gets the win to retain the X Division Championship. And very entertaining match. A lot of exciting action. The X Division at the time was definitely one of the best things about TNA. I'm sure if you were a fan of TNA at the time, one of your favorite parts of the shows, the pay-per-views, was the X Division matches. And just look at the talent you got in here. Senshi, as I already mentioned, Loki, Sanjay Dutt, Alex Shelley, Shark Boy, Petey Williams, Jay Lethal. And just a little fun fact in here, actually. They said Shark Boy was actually the one who came up with the name Slammiversary, since it was the anniversary pay-per-view of Total Nonstop Action. Came up with Slammiversary. Next up, Kevin Nash with Alex Shelley in his corner, Paparazzi Productions. He defeated Chris Sabin at 8 minutes 20 seconds. And at the time, Kevin Nash was trying to take out the X Division. He was against the style, against the smaller guys. I remember one thing he said at the time was a mediocre big man can beat an X Division wrestler any day of the week or something like that. But Chris Sabin had a good performance here with Kevin Nash, but it was Kevin Nash going over, picking up the win in this one. Next up, the NWA World Tag Team Championships on the line. We have the phenomenal AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels defeating America's Most Wanted Wildcat Chris Harris and Cowboy James Storm with Gail Kim in their corner. Now Styles and Daniels pick up the win when Sorelda, aka Jamie D, come and help them out because Styles and Daniels had matches with them in the past. And then Gail Kim kept interfering, getting involved, costing Styles and Daniels the titles. So they got an enforcer. They got back up to go against Gail Kim. Very good match here, in my opinion. Definitely Styles and Daniels, two of the best wrestlers TNA has ever had. America's Most Wanted, as I already mentioned, one of the best tag teams in TNA history. And next up, I want to correct myself actually. That six-way match was not an X Division title match, but it was a number one contenders match. My mistake, because Samoa Joe was actually the X Division champion at the time, but the title was not on the line on this pay-per-view. But instead, Samoa Joe was in action against Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner, who made his TNA debut March of this year, I believe. 13 minutes, 4 seconds. Pretty good match here. Samoa Joe was hot in TNA at the time, still undefeated, the X Division champion. Samoa and Scott Steiner came in. He wanted to end his streak. And it is Samoa Joe getting the win to remain undefeated. The main event of the evening is up next for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. It is the King of the Mountain, Jeff Jarrett, taking on Christian Cage, who is the champion at the time. Abyss with James Mitchell, Ron the Truth Killings, and the Icon Sting. This one goes 23 minutes. And it is Jeff Jarrett picking up the win with some help from Larry Zbyszko and referee Earl Hebner at 23 minutes. I know I already mentioned that, but and at the time, I forgot to mention something earlier on the pay-per-view. Jim Cornette is announced as the new public face of TNA management, and he comes down to the ring and takes the NWA World Heavyweight Championship away from Jeff Jarrett. And that is all for 2006. And now we move on to 2007, celebrating the 5th anniversary of TNA Wrestling. And this one is the first Slammiversary held outside of the Impact Zone. And it is in Nashville, Tennessee, Nashville Municipal Auditorium, The attendance is 3,500. And earlier on, though, in TNA, when they were still doing the NWA TNA Wednesday night pay-per-views, they did some of the pay-per-views in this very building. Now let's move on to the actual pay-per-view. Rhino and Senshi with Hector Guerrero in their corner. They defeat LAX, the original LAX, Homicide and Hernandez with Conan in their corner. Good match to start off the pay-per-view, I thought. 8 minutes, 25 seconds. And our second match of the evening, Jay Lethal defeats Chris Sabin in a match for the X Division Championship. 8 minutes, 52 seconds. And next up, we got Frank Wycheck, football player, and Jerry Lynn with Kyle Vanden Bosch from the Tennessee Titans in their corner as they defeat the Cowboy James Storm and Ronda Truth Killings with Jackie Moore in their corner. 8 minutes, 52 seconds. No, he didn't do too bad. Wycheck, football player, obviously not the first football player to do anything in pro wrestling. He wasn't too bad in this one. The match was okay, I thought. It was decent anyway. And next up, we have a legend in the business, Bob Backlund, defeating Alex Shelley. 3 minutes, 46 seconds here. Backlund was kind of going back and forth with Kevin Nash and Shelley at this time. Paparazzi Productions. And Backlund, though, even at his age, he could still go. And he worked a pretty good match with Alex Shelley. I thought he kept up with him. But he has always been in very good shape for his age. And like I said, Backlund getting the win. The Voodoo Kin Mafia, formerly the James Gang, taking on Basham and Damaja with Christy Hemme in their corner. 2 minutes, 47 seconds. Short match here. VKM picks up the win. They were going back and forth with Christy Hemme. Had a little feud at the time. Christy Hemme at the time was trying to bring in different tag teams to beat the James Gang. And Eric Young defeats Robert Roode with Miss Tracy Brooks in his corner. And this match is at 9 minutes, 9 seconds. And the next match is scheduled to be Team 3D taking on the Steiner brothers. But a while before this, at a show in Puerto Rico, I believe it was, Scott Steiner had a serious injury and had to have surgery. I want to say it was a collapsed lung or something. And they say there in Puerto Rico they saved his life actually. And so of course he is not able to compete in the match. But Rick Steiner gets a big replacement for him here, and it is Road Warrior Animal as they take on Team 3D for the TNA World Tag Team Championships. Team 3D gets the win, and pretty good match here. 6 minutes, 39 seconds. I remember growing up being a big fan of the Steiner brothers right here in Michigan, hometown boys. and of course was a Road Warrior fan, Legion of Doom, whatever you want to call him, Animal and Hawk. At this time, of course, Hawk already passed away in 2003, but it was good to see Animal back, see two of the greatest tag team wrestlers of all time team together, at least in my opinion anyway. And next one is kind of an underrated match in my opinion, but I thought it was very good. Doesn't really get talked about as much as I think it should. It was Sting taking on Christopher Daniels in this one. Very good match here. Sting, of course, a legend in the wrestling business. Christopher Daniels, definitely a veteran, great worker. And Sting gets the win at 6 minutes 33 seconds. And next up, the Monster Abyss defeats Tomko in a no disqualification match. 13 minutes 54 seconds. The finish sees Abyss hit a black hole slam onto Tomko, onto shards of broken glass. Not a good way to spend the Sunday night. The main event, once again, is the King of the Mountain match for the first ever TNA World Championship, no longer using the NWA World Championship in TNA. Kurt Angle is victorious in this one. He defeats Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Christian Cage, and Chris Harris. Which Chris Harris actually wasn't one of the original superstars supposed to be in this match. It originally was supposed to be Jeff Jarrett, but unfortunately, about a couple weeks or so before the pay-per-view, Jeff Jarrett's wife Jill passed away. So Jarrett said he wasn't really in the mindset to compete at the pay-per-view. So got Chris Harris to come in, take his place. This one was one of the good King of the Mountain matches, in my opinion. Angle becoming the first ever TNA World Champion. So overall, 2007, good solid pay-per-view. Now let's move on to 2008, which was June 8th, 2008, the 6-year anniversary of TNA from South Haven, Mississippi. I remember, though, at the time they were building it as being from Memphis, Tennessee. From the DeSoto Civic Center, the attendance was 2,000. Now let's get into the results. It is P.D. Williams, who is the reigning X Division champion at the time, with Raka Khan in his corner and Scott Steiner as well. He defeats Kaz, also known as Frankie Kazarian, to retain the championship. 15 minutes, 19 seconds. A 6 women's knockout tag team match is up next. Gail Kim, ODB, and Roxy defeat the Beautiful People and Moose, Angelina Love, and Velvet Sky, the Beautiful People. And Moose was not Moose, who is now in Impact Wrestling, but a different Moose. LAX, Hernandez, and Homicide, now baby faces, with Hector Guerrero and Salinas in their corner, defeat Team 3D in a match for the TNA World Tag Team Championships. Awesome Kong defeated Serena Deeb in this one. That's when, at the time, Kong was challenging women to come out of the crowd and face her. And also Josie Robinson. We had 2 challengers tonight. Kong defeats her, and AJ Styles defeats Kurt Angle. 22 minutes, 44 seconds. This is a very good one. I recommend, if you have never seen this match before for any reason, I recommend checking it out. Also, you can not only this match, but all Slammiversaries are on Impact Plus, Impact Wrestling streaming service. I have a subscription to it. It's a very good one. You can go back and see a lot of great matches, a lot of great talent. That is Impact Plus. You can download it on Roku, Google Play, Apple, just about anything. Any streaming devices, just about. And the main event is next. The King of the Mountain match for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. And history is made at the time as Samoa Joe becomes the first ever champion to retain his title in the King of the Mountain match, defeating Booker T, Christian Cage, Rhino, and Robert Roode. Good match here. And as we see Samoa Joe retain, and Kevin Nash is the special guest ringside enforcer. These 5 had a good match, worked well together. And this wasn't a match on the pay-per-view, but it also featured the wedding of Jay Lethal and SoCal Val. And we see some legends in this one. We see George the Animal Steel, Michigan's own, Coco Beware, and Jake the Snake Roberts. And of course, Sanjay Dutt ends up interrupting the wedding, ruins it, and he is taken out by each of the legends. Also, Kamala. How could I forget to mention Kamala? And he is taken out by the legends. The wedding's ruined, unfortunately. And Jay Lethal at the time was doing the Black Machismo character. And our final Slammiversary that we are going to look at on this episode of TBT is a special one to me, Slammiversary 2009. The reason it's special because I was at this one right here at the Palace of Auburn Hills here in Michigan. And it is the 7th anniversary of TNA Wrestling, June 21st, 2009. Already mentioned Auburn Hills, Michigan, at the Palace. The attendance was 4,000. Like I said, I was at this show, had a hot crowd throughout the night. And I definitely recommend this show if you have the Impact Plus. Definitely go on that. Watch this one. I mean, I might be biased because, like I said, I was at the show. And, like I said, very hot crowd here. Excited to see TNA here in Michigan. Was the second pay-per-view in Michigan. The first one was Bound for Glory 2006 in Plymouth at the CompuWare Arena. But now, obviously, they are in a much bigger arena at the Palace, which was recently demolished last weekend. And we start off the pre-show match, actually, is the British Invasion. Brutus Magnus, now known as Nick Aldis, real name, in the NWA, doing very well for himself, and Douglas Williams, with Rob Terry in their corner. They defeat Eric Young and Rhino. Young turns heel in this one, walks away on his partner Rhino, 8 minutes 20 seconds. And we kick off the actual pay-per-view with the first time 2 King of the Mountain matches in one Slammiversary. The first one is the first ever X Division King of the Mountain match, and it is the champion Suicide at the time, who I believe was being played by Frankie Kazarian, and he defeats Alex Shelley, Chris Sabin, Consequences Creed, now known as Xavier Woods, and Jay Lethal. And the title holder in this one, is at the time for the Detroit Tigers, Curtis Granderson. And there was also members of the Detroit Tigers also in the audience. Joel Zumaya, Fernando Rodney, Dimitri Young, I believe, and maybe a couple others. This one, Suicide retains, jumping off the penalty box onto the ladder to hang up the X Division Championship. Exciting match here. This one was actually, in my opinion, I know some people aren't really a big fan of the King of the Mountain match, but in my opinion, personally, I was always a fan of the King of the Mountain match. This one, with the X Division guys in there, had a lot more high-flying, a lot more fast-paced, exciting action that you saw in the X Division. And when you have ladders in there, use the penalty box to dive off of, made it even better. And Christopher Daniels versus Shane Douglas in this match. Shane Douglas was fighting for his spot in TNA at the time. He saw that Christopher Daniels got a second chance, so he wanted his second chance. Daniels picks up the win, 8 minutes 12 seconds. The Knockouts Championship match is up next. Angelina Love with Mass and Rain of Velvet Sky taking on the recently debuted Tara, formerly Victoria in WWE. Some interference from the beautiful people in this match. Love retains at 6 minutes 51 seconds. The next up is the Monsters Ball intergender Monsters Ball match. The first ever is the Monster Abyss and Taylor Wilde taking on Raven and Daphne with Dr. Stevie in their corner. Of course, a lot of brawling in this match. And like I said, if you go back and watch the show, the part where they brawl into the crowd, you might see a certain wrestling podcast host. Just, you gotta look close though. You gotta look really, really close though. But good one in this one. Thumbtacks, other weapons, as you would expect in a Monsters Ball match. And it is Abyss and Taylor Wilde picking up the win. 14 minutes, 7 seconds. The Icon Sting versus the Blueprint Matt Morgan. And at this time, Morgan was trying to get into the main event Mafia. So Sting put up his spot on the line in the main event Mafia. He told Morgan if he defeats him, he can have his spot in the main event Mafia. But it is Sting who is victorious here. 8 minutes, 59 seconds. The TNA World Tag Team Championships are on the line. Next is Beer Money, James Storm and Bobby Roode. Just like America's Most Wanted, James Storm, a part of another one of TNA's greatest tag teams. Also Bobby Roode, who Robert Roode at this time was part of Team Canada, of course. And they defeat Team 3D in this one, 16 minutes, 55 seconds. Only the TNA tag team titles were on the line in this one. Team 3D at the time was also the IWGP Tag Team Champions for New Japan Pro Wrestling. Pretty good one. This one sees interference, though, from the British Invasion. They cost Team 3D the match and the tag team titles. the TNA Tag Team titles. The main event is up next, and it is Kurt Angle, who comes out wearing a Pittsburgh Penguins Sidney Crosby jersey. Just before this, week or two before, I think, the Penguins defeated the Red Wings to win the Stanley Cup. So obviously that didn't get a good reception here in Michigan. And Mick Foley, who is the defending TNA World Champion at the time, the phenomenal AJ Styles, the King of the Mountain, Jeff Jarrett, and Samoa Joe. And to start this one off, this one got started wild. Samoa Joe ends up going under the ring and getting a Chris Osgood jersey, putting it on, and attacking Kurt Angle. So, of course, that got a huge pop from the hometown crowd here in Michigan. Chants of Ozzy, chants of Joe. Great way to start off this one. This one is Kurt Angle winning when Samoa Joe actually has the TNA World title on the ladder about to win the match. Or at least it looks like he's about to win the match anyway. But then he hands the title over to Kurt Angle, allowing him to win. Joe joins the main event Mafia, 22 minutes, 4 seconds in this one. And then we see Kevin Nash, Booker T. Scott Steiner, the whole Mafia out to celebrate the win. Kurt Angle becoming TNA World Champion once again. That was TNA Slammiversary 2009 at the Palace of Auburn Hills. As I mentioned, I was there live. I had a blast, a great time at this show. Great pay-per-view, at least in my opinion anyway. I was on the edge of my seat the whole night. Everybody was really, though. A lot of exciting action, chanting TNA. And that was the first 5 TNA Slammiversary pay-per-views. And I wanted, like I said at the top of the show, I wanted to do something Slammiversary related because this Sunday night, Impact Wrestling Slammiversary pay-per-view, order on your local pay-per-view provider or the Fight TV app. I definitely recommend ordering this pay-per-view. Hopefully, I will do an episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic recapping the pay-per-view. So, that was the first episode of TBT, Throwback Thursday, whatever you want to call it. And thanks for either listening on the audio podcast or watching the live stream on YouTube. Remember, if you want to help out, you can go to the 360 Wrestling Podcast Anchor page, which I linked in the description. And you don't have to donate anything, but if you want to, it would really help out, make the podcast better. And it would be very much appreciated. And that's it for this episode. Hopefully we'll be back next week. I'm not sure. Like I got a suggestion for George Animal Steel already. I might try to cover him in one episode. Not sure when, but I might try to cover him. And if you have any suggestions, you can either on YouTube leave in the comments or email 360wrestlingpodcast@gmail.com. Remember, the Instagram is 360 Wrestling Podcast. Facebook, even though I haven't really been updating it, I might get back to that soon, maybe. It's facebook.com/360 Wrestling Podcast. Or you could probably just search 360 Wrestling Podcast on Facebook. Should come up. Thanks for listening or watching, everybody. I appreciate it. Also, Hope to have another episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic up soon. Not really sure when. Still trying to figure out a set day, set time of the week when to do it. But once again, thanks for tuning in.